5:30 p.m. and I am calling to order this meeting of the Fargo Board of Education. Please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I will look for approval of the agenda. Greg.
I move for approval of the agenda with the human capital addendum.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion from Greg and a second from Nikki. Any conversation? Okay, all in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Any opposition, same sign. And that motion passes 9-0. We do not have anyone signed up for speaking to us this evening, so we'll move right into the reports. We do have Laura with us, however, she's not going to be speaking, so we'll just wave and say hi. Thank you for being here. Good to see you. And we will now turn it over to Dr. Steiner.
Thank you. Jackie, do you want to go first with the grant?
I can do that. You had provided in your packet to you the 2025 Grant Opportunities Report. This highlights our efforts to identify, apply for, and manage grant funding that supports our district mission and strategic goals. I'm just going to give you a real brief highlight of the report. So for last fiscal year, we were awarded a little over $15 million in funding. The majority of that is from our entitlement grants, so our title grants, which we often refer them to, and special ed grants for IDEA. And then we had a little over $3 million in competitive grants that we applied for, which were for literacy, communities and schools, adult ed, and refugee and mental health services as well. Most of the funds we use for grants are for salaries and benefits of instructional and support staff. They are also used to develop and provide for some innovative programming that we have, professional learning for our teachers, and I think more recently in the last few years, student well-being services have been kind of a big focus as well. So as we look kind of to the future, want to note that many of our funding sources are from the U.S. government and mostly from the Department of Ed, but we also have the Department of Health and Human Services, Department of Labor, Department of Justice, and even the Environmental Protection Agency. Our grant revenues are kind of stabilizing now. On the last page of that report, you see kind of the chart where we had those 4 years of COVID funding really kind of spiked, and we're kind of now on that downturn, and we'll be stabilizing with that. And I think that's all I have.
Great. Do we have, Robin, do you want to add anything or ask questions?
Yeah, thank you. Jackie, I did kind of give you a heads up. Thank you for mentioning the federal funding. Most of these, 87% of these funds do come through the federal government. Due to the change or the expected change in the Department of Education, I have requested Jackie to kind of start to asterisk some of these that do come from the DOE, but also Office of Juvenile Justice, HHS, Department of Labor. And what was the last one you mentioned? Environment.
Environmental Protection
Yep.
Agency.
I would like to do that just so we can watch which funds kind of switch where, because we continue to hear that a lot of these will move to other departments and or be returned to states. So I think that would be something interesting for us to follow. Does that seem like a reasonable ask? Okay. And then one of my other comments, when you get to the collaborative grants, I want to first maybe share an overarching observation. Oftentimes when we say we're short on funds, we hear write grants for it. That's just not the way it works. Writing a grant is writing the grant, putting the budget together, saying what you're going to do, and that's about a quarter of it. Then you need to buy it, implement it, then you got to track it, and then you got to report on it. So it's much more complex than just writing a grant, and I think that's important to say for our grant writer and everybody who's implementing these programs. And oftentimes they are grants that are for additional services, not existing services. I told you I would comment briefly on the collaborative grants. The Department of Public Instruction it says it funds the 21st Century Community Learning Grant, and that's awarded to SEEK, which is that's my liaison for multi-year. That's a federal grant. Even though it says SEEK pays directly for services, federal government gives the funds to the state, DPI, and then it goes through SEEK, the administrator, who then pays the funds to the providers. So I just want to make sure everybody has that clear. 21st Century, this is just because this is my life. Those are braided with other federal funds to provide lower costs and higher quality programming. And a lot of the rules from some of these federal grants, they should not supplant funds. They need to supplement them. And so grants are so much more very complex than I think a lot of people realize until you live that world. So please thank your grant writer on this, because it's just not a simple task. Thank you.
Nikki?
Thank you for saying that, Robin. Thank you for asking the question. I wholeheartedly agree. We do need to keep track of this. This is not a small piece of what we do. And to thank the grant writer, really, really all of us should be giving her a round of applause, because it is an intense process to be able to do this. So thank you very much. And I appreciate the attention to it.
Jason?
Yeah, just curious, 2024, we had 28 million in federal grants. Now this 2025, 14 million. What's the district doing to make that up if most of this is tied up in positions?
That was related to the ending of the COVID funding, of the ESSER funding. So I think we've made probably most of the changes we need to make, and still maybe have a few more as we get out of that funding stream completely.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have other questions or comments on this? No? Okay, well, thank you, Jackie, very much for this presentation and your hard work on this, and we will move to Dr. Steiner now.
Yeah, just a few updates. Starting next week, I'll have 2 evenings where I'll do some listening sessions with our homeschool families. So Anne Marie has been nice enough to put letters to go out to those families, and just going to have conversations about why they chose to homeschool, respecting that fully, but also asking if they understand the variety of different options we have available in our district, from self-directed to virtual, and also trying to find out, like, what other things should we be thinking about in our district to meet student needs. So I'll have a couple different sessions next week to listen. We continue our EBR listening sessions. We'll actually start middle school tomorrow. So we finished our comprehensive high schools, those 6, and we'll start with middle school tomorrow. Later this week, our entire cabinet is meeting with a group called Edgeonomics. Edgeonomics is really, I would say, kind of the national expert on school funding. They understand every state's unique way they fund, and every state is very unique in how they fund K-12 education. But they're also the group that has very much predicted what we all knew would happen when COVID funds went away. So a little bit of what Jason said is, a lot of places just kept doing what they're doing and then found out that we don't have the funds to keep doing what we're doing. So we got the executive director to agree. She's going to Zoom in with us and take us through how do you plan and build your budget forward when you're facing some fairly significant deficits. So we're all going to participate in that. Hopefully that'll give us some good standing and good ideas to move forward with. Couple celebrations. Fargo South High School soccer team, state champions. So that was amazing. And if you also saw, there was a wonderful article in the Forum too about our diverse group of kids, and wonderful job our coaches have done. So really, really proud moment for the district. Sydney Azure is a Catalyst coach in our district. And we got an email just, I think it was early last week or early this week, listing all the things that she has been certified in. So she has now got her coaches levels 1 through 5 recertification. She is now a foundational skill evaluator and now a demonstration recertification evaluator, like the highest level you can have. And, everybody I've talked to a fault, will say how amazing she is and how instrumental she has been in the adoption of Catalyst. There's going to be a fairly good press release that'll come out on that. But again, it's just a celebration of somebody who has really, really chosen greatness in their path and really making a difference for kids and teachers. Bonding over books. I was in Discovery the other day. This was just a cool little thing. And I think it's like sometimes we talk about the big things, but there's little things happening all over the place that are really good. And I went in, I was talking to the librarian, and she was like, they had a big thing of candy, and it made me think of all of our candy that we'll get to later tonight again. And she said, oh, I incentivize a little bit, but basically they take a book home and they read a book with someone, and they have to discuss that book with someone, and she has a little book slips that they take home. But then the part I really loved about it was simple things like, what character is most likely? Empathize with the character. What would you be like if you were in their shoes? And I think like one of the things we always hear from parents and people is, I don't know what questions to ask. And so she just said, well, how about we build the questions? And you don't have to, after a long day of work, try to think of that. We'll just give you that list. So they're doing it at home, and then they're going to now start expanding it to peers to read books. So I thought, what a unique way to engage kids in just a passion for reading and loving reading and bringing that home. I think of all the things we can do at home with kids, that's probably the one thing if ever we could change, I would just have parents be able to have time to just read with their kids, because it's a pretty powerful indicator of future success. And then the last one, you'll see a nice bike book, board members. You've heard some of that reference. It's Nice Bike is about just ordinary people doing extraordinary things. And there's a long story to it. I'm not going to go into that tonight. But ultimately what we're doing in the district is we give the Nice Bike book to someone, we honor, acknowledge, and celebrate them, and then we ask them to pass that along after they've read it and do the same thing. So Anne Marie was our first recipient in the district. I gave her that, and then Anne Marie passed it to,
Cindy Hoganson.
yep, and then Cindy passed it to Kevin. Yeah, and so now Kevin will pass that to the next person. We also gave it to all of our principals, and they're passing it. And it's just kind of a traveling trophy way to just say thanks for what people do. So I thought when we're talking about Nice Bike, you'll hear that, you'll see it out in social media. You should have a copy to read. So my challenge to you as board members is read it, and if you're willing, pass it along, maybe in your workplace or to your family, and wherever it goes, but it's just a nice, simple way to say we're grateful for what others do. So that's it for me.
Great, thank you very much. Now we are at our consent agenda, and I will look for a motion. Nikki?
I move that we approve the consent agenda with the HR addendum, or maybe we don't have an.
Yeah, we do. Yep.
Yeah, we do.
Okay, so we have a motion from Nikki and a second from Ally. Any discussion? All in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Any opposition, same sign. And that motion passes 9-0. We're now on our business section. So item A is memo 45, and that comes to us from Dr. Steiner.
Yeah, thank you. So you will see our results policy monitoring for strategic initiative 1, tiered instruction. If you remember right, one of the things we had asked is we wanted to reduce down the length of what's written and try to boil it down to the really essential items to show you how we're doing, and then allow you to ask some questions and allow us to fill in the gaps. And we decided we weren't going to necessarily put together a long presentation for you, but Dr. Hansen, who is really instrumental in helping us with this strategic initiative with her team, is here to help answer some of the questions, as will cabinet members help answer some of the questions. So Dr. Hansen, is there anything you want to share? Or do you want to just be prepared for questions?
I was told not to make a presentation. And that's hard, but I did not.
We did share that. Not that we didn't want you to have a presentation for the board. We just thought the data and information is there for you.
And it was hard to kind of wrap all that information into, I think my goal was, I was told 1 to 2 pages. I think it's 4. There's pictures, and so it takes up room. But so even that was hard. So I think overall, I'm just really pleased with the work our teachers are doing. Our teachers have tremendous responsibility on their shoulders, and they are doing really great work with students. And we see a lot of success with student outcomes, and really initiative one is around student outcomes. So are there questions?
Okay, yeah. Are there
I'm happy.
questions?
Yeah.
Ally?
So just kind of drilling in here a little bit on, again, my question is really going to be formed around where Fargo is less than the state. What are some of the strategies that you and your team are working on to help bring that up to at the state standard or above, right?
Yeah, and specifically for NDA plus, yes, okay. I think for NDA plus, what we have dug into now is looking at both our ELO data. So we have some really good ELO data, and that is data that teachers are reporting and how students are meeting those standards, those required state standards. So we look at that. We then are unpacking the NDA plus, because there's, and I won't say concern, but we're discussing about the rigor. Because in looking at some really detailed data around, what we did is compared ELOs to NDA plus, and what we see is, and I don't want to say inflation or deflation because we don't know which yet, but there's commonalities across all schools except for two, where our ELO scores are a lot higher than our NDA plus. And what we want the ELOs to do is be more of an indicator for NDA plus, right? That's the goal of this whole initiative right here. And so what we've dug into is rigor and looking at, with our standards, and they're state standards, but instructionally, are we teaching to that same rigor that is tested on in the NDA plus? And so then we've dug into NAVI to look at the competencies in NAVI, because we believe that actually mimics NDA plus. And so that's the work, as complicated as that may sound, that's the work we're doing to analyze the difference between the two and then close that gap with instructional practices. With NAVI, with the competencies, we really feel like some of it might be some test-taking strategies that we give kids. I don't think that's the end-all be-all, but I do think it's something where if we have third graders that have never seen a summative test, a computerized summative test, although they have, how do we take multiple choice tests? How do we read through and highlight on a computer? Sometimes we have kids that don't come in with those skills. And so doing some of that, but also looking at the rigor, the instruction, and closing the gap between the two and aligning that.
And then just to follow up, so I know we changed some curriculums this year. We rolled out CKI.
We did.
How do you foresee that helping fill that gap?
Yeah, I think, especially in literacy, right, with CKLA, I think the goal is to close the gap with our literacy competencies and strategies so that students are reading better as they move up. With CKLA, as we've been even in just 2 buildings today, the content is rich, right? Great content, and we're really engaging kids. And now what we see is some of the learning is hard. And so making sure that those instructional strategies are then meeting the needs of kids where they're at, and then kind of push it, it's rigorous. And so we believe that with our instructional playbook, with our instructional strategies, plus this rigorous curricular tool, it will close that gap quite shortly. Thanks.
Okay, Robin?
Please remind me, the NDA Plus is brand new.
It
and
is.
is NAVI, so is it new this year?
So the NDA Plus, so the scores that were reported out with NDA Plus last spring, that was our first year of taking that summative.
Okay.
We had opted in to do the interim as well. So we do the NDA Plus interim, so fall and winter, shorter test. It's supposed to be an indicator. It does not give us great indication yet. And then the summative, yeah, this is our first year. So what I've compared for schools is I did list it, so I listed the last 3 years of the NDSA, which is the old summative, and then the NDA plus. And if they're watching this, they're gonna be sick of this joke. We're comparing apples to oranges, but they're both fruit. Thank you for laughing. No, but We looked at that lightly because it is two different tests, but the hope is it should be the same standards, right? The state standards haven't changed. And so our hope is that we have a little comparison there. But this was our first report out with the NDA plus summative.
Greg, did you have, go ahead.
Aren't you glad there's only 3 measures this year?
Oh, I was looking at last year's and I'm like, oh my goodness. Like,
I did that as well.
okay, I'm glad I'm not the only one because
Comparisons,
it
I
was
was like,
just a lot of measures and it feels more succinct this year in many ways.
Yeah, I think
So
we.
was that your entire question?
No.
Yeah, thank you.
That's my first question. But yeah, I think we did a good job picking a good 3. So my question is about the choice ready data, and I'm wondering, what do you think accounts for the gap between our graduation rates and our choice ready rates? And is there any work being done to kind of close the gap? Because I mean, really, they're like 2 standards that we have, and they both kind of come from the same place. So I'm kind of wondering
Yeah.
how we can make.
And
those
I am
align.
Dr. Jonas isn't here, but I am gonna hand it over to Dr. Gross.
Thank you. So as you look at Choice Ready, if you have ever seen the document that's on the Department of Public Instruction website, there's a top section of it, and it is highlighted in green. And those are the essential skills that students need to have in order to graduate in the state of North Dakota. So they are the minimum requirements. So that really is where we're at with our graduation rate. Then from there are 3 different columns in which a student would need to be choice ready. One column is post-secondary ready, one is workforce ready, and one is military ready. There are a series of criteria in each one of them that a student needs to demonstrate multiple pieces in order to be choice ready in one of them. To be choice ready in the state of North Dakota, you have to meet those requirements in 2 of those 3 areas. So there are some lofty things that students need to do in order to be choice ready. So what we have done as a system, because we look at the difference between our graduation rate and our choice ready rate, is we have actually developed a tool that we put in front of students so they can see where they're at any time along that continuum of becoming choice ready. We use that with our career advisors, with our counselors and our principals as they sit down and talk with students about where are you at along this continuum of learning and what do you need to get to that next spot. And then we've also looked at some things systemically. One of those columns is military ready. A few years ago, we said we have offered the ASVAB assessment, which is a military assessment. It was optional for students, and most likely it was at the senior year. We moved that to their junior year, and we highly require that assessment for all students so that they have that opportunity to meet that requirement. And then that gave us one more year to come back and say, you made it, great. What is one of the 2 of those other criteria that you need to get you to that spot? If you didn't, where else can we help you? And then we've taken that tool and then changed it one more time because the scholarship ready components are a little bit more rigorous than that. And we want to put that in front of our students as well to help them get that and be scholarship ready. To the point where there are districts across the state who have been somewhat envious of the tool that we created here in Fargo. And there is a group of schools with DPI's help trying to emulate a very similar model for their districts as well. So it's through the conversations that we have with students, putting the data in front of them and changing some systemic pieces to help our kids be more choice ready and graduate on time.
Robin.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to accept the reasonable progress has been made on RSI 1 for the 25-26 school year.
Second.
Okay, so I have a motion from Robin and a second from Kristen. Is there more discussion or questions? Go ahead.
So, along with the three measures we have in our strategic plan, kind of a laundry list of operational plan items. Um, those aren't officially part of what we're evaluating, but it's part of our strategic plan and the result itself. So I was wondering what it, what worked, what didn't. Are there any operational items that really, we know really served these goals and these measures? Are there some that we're just going to toss out? How'd it go last year?
Sure. I think from last year to this year, we've had some great successes. Specifically, we ran a PLC, so a professional learning community plus pilot last year with 5 schools. It was 4 elementaries and a middle school. And really dug into the PLC process, so the way that teachers talk to each other about their data, about instruction, and what they're going to do with it. And really honed in on certain skills and strategies for them to work on. And then what we were able to do this year is implement it then full scale with all of our buildings. And we've seen great progress with teachers, building principals, coaches, really talking about the data. And then, because I think for a long time, we talked about data, right? But I think time is an issue, but also I think some strategies on then how to get past the data into what good instruction is and who's doing it well and what can we take from the people that are doing it well. And so that's when I see great success, when we're in buildings looking at PLCs, but then looking at the instruction we see. You can tell teams are talking about their students and how to improve instruction there. So that PLC pilot into a full-scale implementation is one that we've really seen great results with. I also think we've done a lot of work with principals around side-by-side coaching. So we're in our second year, and actually this week we're in our second week of side-by-side coaching, where we bring in a representative, and then generally it's Joy L. Johnson and myself that sit in with that to listen and learn as well. But we have small groups of principals going into classrooms looking at instruction, not evaluating, but then coming back and getting coached around, here's the feedback that you can give to teachers around our priority elements that are part of our evaluation. And so that was almost organic in how that kind of merged last year. And so we brought it back this year because we had such great success. And at some point, I think Dr. McCanna will talk about hopefully some outputs that we've seen with evaluations and some streamlining of data, that it's more consistent. And the goal there is that teachers are getting appropriate feedback on instruction to get better, and the impact that that feedback and that coaching can have on student learning. So that's one that has been tremendous as we move forward. I think the last 2 years, we've been really strategic on how we use release days for teachers. So time that teachers are coming out of their classroom during the school day to work with facilitators, coordinators, coaches, either at the building level or the district level, to talk about instruction. For secondary, a lot of it's working around evidence-based grading, evidence-based reporting, and really as a team, making some decisions around that. Although we've had to reduce some of those days, those are probably our most valuable days that we have with teachers. We get positive feedback from teachers, from principals, from coaches, and it makes the most impact. They have solid time, uninterrupted solid time, where they can talk about instruction, where they can plan, where they can do that work that they need to do, which a lot of times during the school day, they're just running. And so those 3 things I'd let anyone else from cabinet speak to, really are highlighted in my head. I will add, with the CKLA adoption, we did a pioneer last year. So we had 90+ classrooms that chose to say, yeah, I want to go in a year early and try this out. And they worked with us then. They gave us feedback on what worked, what didn't work. And we were able to take that feedback and tailor PD this August for then that full implementation. It was a really great process that Lisa Roski, Lindsay Seelig led to really help. And just kudos to those pioneer teachers, those 90+ teachers. We had 2 buildings that fully, like every teacher in their building did it. And they're a step ahead this year then, right? Because they've gone through it for a full year. But the knowledge from teachers on that process to really help guide us to where we're at now was really instrumental. With any big curricular resource adoption, that's probably a model we're going to repeat because it was very successful.
Robin?
Robin?
One quick follow-up. Not now, but I would like to see how the ACLA compares to the science of reading through the state of North Dakota. I don't need to hear about it right now. We can meet separately on that.
The
I'm sure it
ACLA?
relates. I'm sorry?
What do you want to compare?
AC,
T? No?
whatever you just mentioned.
Oh, CKLA.
Sorry.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, okay, CKLA. I'm just looking at different acronyms.
Yeah, oh,
How that
yes.
fits with the,
Welcome.
right, with the science of reading in North Dakota.
Oh.
But I don't need to hear about
Okay.
that right now.
I'm
I'm sure you would. Let's visit.
Yes, we can visit anytime. We'd love to speak to you about that.
Thank you.
Okay, Dr. Steiner, go ahead.
Yeah, one thing, Greg, you asked, like if everything was rainbows and unicorns, we just keep doing everything and keep getting great results. So one of the things that we've had conversations with is around summer school. We have looked and we're not convinced summer school is moving the needle in terms of the things that you're seeing here. And so we've sat down and said, what could it look like if it was different? And how do we make sure that it's getting outcomes that align with what we want in the district? So Missy, Bob, myself, we've sat down with David, who ran summer school. We've talked with Bill, Dr. McKenna, cabinet members, and we're working on kind of a redesign of what summer school would look like. For example, potentially sister schools at the elementary. Right now, you might have 4 kindergartners that are in one school, and then you can't really get a group that are going to learn. But also, we have all this ELO data, and they come into the summer, and we're not necessarily focusing on the ELOs. We're focusing on some recess time, which there's some value in all that. Some be good friends time, and then maybe some reading and math. Now we're going to try to focus that more clearly around the ELOs, and even in the secondary level. In the past, it's been you didn't pass the class, you come back, you take the whole class, when there might be just one portion of that class that they didn't make it in. And so instead of redoing all that, we're going to see if we can kind of have a pathway where kids could just do that. And I think that also, when you say choice ready, so now that kid has 2 months where they can actually go work because they're not going to be in a class. I think there's some things that we put in place that can make that better. So summer school is one of those things that we're doing kind of a deep dive to look at fixing.
Okay, great. Do we have any other questions or comments on this particular topic? Okay, Anne Marie, can you call the roll, please?
Robin Nelson,
Yes.
Olenberger,
Yes.
Berkland,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Day,
Yes.
Gullickson.
Yes.
Passes 9-0. Our next item of business is memo number 46, the first reading of our 2028 elementary attendance boundaries, and I'm going to turn to Greg Clark to introduce this to us.
Thanks, Katie. I won't speak too long because I can't really take credit for all the work that's gone into this. This did come through planning, which is why I'm I'm teeing it off here. But really, because we have the new Northside Elementary School being built at the Horace Mann site in the coming years, Missy and her team kind of brought to us like, we really need to start thinking now about boundaries, because when that site is under construction, there's going to be students who are displaced, but we also want to make sure that when we redraw boundaries because of that temporary displacement, we can also draw those boundaries in a way that suit our needs for the future for when the school is built, so that we can reduce the amount of headache and kind of bouncing around, so we can do as much as we can to draw one boundary sooner than later for the long term. But I'll give it to Missy to kind of go into further depth.
appreciate that. So the elementary principals, James is here tonight too, if I need a little backup, and Bill. We've been kind of working through and bringing back versions of this to cabinet and to planning. And so if we kind of just go back in time historically, we had the long-range facility plan that really had us look at how we're using our buildings and how is enrollment projections. One of the pieces that's confusing is that we might have a slight increase of elementary over the next 5 years, but it is with a decrease on the north side and an increase on the south side. So when we started really digging into the north side numbers, I'm going to use Washington as the example. Washington has reduced in numbers over the current last 3 years. And so, for example, they've been a very standard 3-section building. Currently, they only have 2 sections of kindergarten, first grade, and second grade, so they've been shrinking. They are predicted to shrink another 50 students. They also have a unique piece to any building in the district because they have about 70 students, 35 petition students, and 35 open enrollment students. So if those 70 students were gone, that would really, so we said we better look with a reflection on that as we go forward, as we're looking at the new elementary building on the north side. So I'm going to just go to the current boundaries. And I was not in Fargo at the time that they were drawn, so I think this is what we have. But that Longfellow box that is yellow, there is no one who lives there that goes to school. And so I just wanted you to know that there's no numbers being pulled. And I have a feeling there was someone at one time, and there might be in the future, but we did not think if we're going to make a change, we thought we should, for busing, have it go to the same school. And so that was just the first thing. Then if we go down, there is this awkward shape off of I-29. As you see that, there's also no students that live there, and that is Fargo Public Schools. It is in the Madison area, and doesn't mean there won't be students, but I wanted just to make sure you knew that at this time, we don't have students who attend from those 2 shapes on there. So currently, Washington Elementary is probably pretty compact because they used to have probably more children per household, but there is no space for new development except for probably, we don't even have much of that, apartment buildings. So we're not seeing that there. We also have from RSP knowing that people are staying longer in their homes and don't always have school-age children. So that is why the recommendation is that we would take the 15th Avenue current boundary of Washington and drop it down to 12th Avenue North, and that does cut through both Madison and HMR. It does 2 things. It stabilizes Washington's enrollment, but it also makes sure that when we open the new north side building, we're not over capacity. We actually have some space as we go forward. So I've kind of talked through the changes, and that would lead us to this map that we're proposing to start next fall, where we would still keep all these students at Washington. And I think one of the questions people might ask, why not just send those students to McKinley? I've tried doing that, and it just tips the wrong grade levels to another section, and then we end up with sections of 13 and 13. So in the next 5 years, we are predicted to go down in enrollment on the north side. We will probably have to come back within the next 5 years and decide if we're going to absorb McKinley into our current north side buildings. I can't recommend it at this time. We need the space at this time. Washington, this is what it would look like then when you expand down to 12th Avenue, the shape they would take on. And then this is Madison's boundary, and it would only be Roosevelt next fall because Horseman's going offline. We decided to put a third map in this proposal because we also think we have to look further out at what this looks like when we have the new elementary. And then it's not a big change, but it'd be those 2 combined. And I thought then, because these maps are so hard to see, we always like to put the actual boundaries roads for people to look at. And then I thought we should just look at the numbers. So Washington is predicted, if we don't do anything, that they'd be at 227.
Sorry
This
to
is-
interrupt.
Oh, sorry.
Residents or
Yep, it was residents. Yeah.
residents only?
So then if you have, right, but that does include our petitions a little bit, yes, because they did off our current enrollment. Now, the adjusted one is including everybody. That our prediction with the adjusted boundaries where we think we will be. For that building, and projected, but they're still gonna go down, is what we have. Then we have Horace Mann, Roosevelt, Madison. We think I did probably err high, but I'd rather err on that side of it, that we could probably start at 375, 390, because we're allowing some grandfathering for kids to finish as we go forward. And I can't predict that exactly, but we wanted to have that. This is the piece of how many sections can we run at the building, and utilization. And so then we wanted to just show that we would be increasing utilization of the buildings across the system. We try to have this on every proposal, a little bit about how the demographics look. So Washington the free and reduced lunch would increase by about 7%. Madison and Roosevelt, you have to remember, some students are going to Washington. And so we try to do it by the new boundaries. Then they would be at 64%. And then the proposed special ed. Madison special ed is high because we run 2 specialized programs there. As we come forward with the implementation plan for the next 2 years, that is something we might have to think about moving the specialized programs, just with space. But that would come to you in December, how we're gonna do the implementation plan for just the construction period. So I think we did put grandfathering in, but it's only for the students who currently attend Horace Mann, Roosevelt in grades 2 through 5 to continue if they were moved, in a sense, to Washington as we go forward. So I have our team, James and Bill, we can answer any questions you have. Dr. Steiner can too. I think we've been working on this for a while.
Okay, and I do want to point out, this is the first reading, so there likely won't be a motion. So please don't make one unless you know what you're doing. So are there other questions or comments or discussion on this topic? Ally?
I just have one quick question or comment, excuse me, and that's just to share gratitude on this. I know that obviously we're going through a major change up on the north side, and bringing these proposed boundary changes, which are always tend to be controversial, forward up front. It allows people to digest, to plan, and I think that you guys did a really great job with the adjustments of them. I mean, 12th is a natural boundary, and it makes sense. It really does.
Thank you. Other questions or comments?
I would just say thanks to Missy, Bill, and James. The complexity of this, like being new to it, is crazy. And the amount of drafts that they have to do and the amount of listening. So they really did wonderful. And Missy's, she doesn't take enough credit for how great she has been in terms of she really thinks through things that I think a lot of us don't even think about or see on the front side. So just all of them deserve to be really commended for putting together a plan that will reduce transitions, be best for kids, and also help staff through an anxious time.
I do have one question about, I know in the plan it says that once boundary changes are approved, that a communication plan will go out. What have we done in terms of communicating this out to the people that would be impacted before we approve it, so that they can they know what's going on before we make a formal change?
So I will say that we can take direction from the board. What we did last time is we didn't send it till it was approved, and we did send it the day after the approval, custom letter to every family affected by it, and with the grandfathering form. So We haven't sent it in between, but that is something that we could do. I always struggle, I don't want to confuse people if that, then we change it. So I'm open. Mhm. And Bill's the one who helps me do that, so.
Okay. Are there other thoughts or comments on that? No?
Just piggybacking off your question, Katie, so if we wanted to do something like that, one of us would have to make a motion to direct them to do so, right? To send out communication?
Anne Marie?
We have not done so in any of the attendance boundary changes that I've ever been a part of.
Okay, thanks. Okay, anything else on this particular topic? No? Okay, so next we will go to business item C, which is memo 47, the joint powers agreement, and I'm gonna turn to Tara Bradner for this one.
Yep, you have in front of you memo 47 requesting the authorization of a joint powers agreement with the Texas Region 8 Education Service Center. North Dakota law essentially requires that we undergo a competitive purchase process for any purchases above $50,000 unless an exception is met. One of the statutory exceptions is if we have entered into a joint powers agreement with another entity for cooperative purchasing. What we are asking you to do is to say that the district can go forward and enter into a joint powers agreement with the Texas Region 8 Education Service Center. Essentially, what the Region 8 Service Center does is it goes forward and does that competitive purchase process for us, and then we have the ability to buy through there. One of the examples, we already have this at the state of North Dakota level where we can buy off of state contracts. When we were going out to look at purchasing some computer equipment, we had moved forward and we were in the bid range. We solicited 2 bids that we had gone out for. The one through this Region 8 center that we could not buy off of was $20,000 less than the state cooperative contracts. And so we are simply just asking for another mechanism where the procurement process has already been done to find ways where we can save potential money.
Okay, Robin?
Dealing with procurement processes myself, I enthusiastically make the motion to authorize the execution of the JPA or interlocal agreement with the Texas Region 8 Education Service Center pursuant to North Dakota Century Code, Chapter 54-40.3.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion from Robin and a second from Nikki. Any questions or conversation?
It doesn't cost us any money to be a part of this.
Ally?
Oh, sorry. She asked me to be called on. It doesn't cost us any money to be a part of this, correct?
That's a great question. It does not.
Okay.
Other questions or comments? Okay, can you please call the roll?
Olenberger,
Yes.
Berkland,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Day,
Yes.
Gullickson,
Yes.
Jason Nelson,
Yes.
Kristen Nelson,
Yes.
Robin Nelson,
Yes.
Christensen Meinier.
Yes, and that motion passes 9-0. We are moving now into our board reports. I'm going to start with Robin and head this direction, and then I'll come over to Nikki and head that direction.
Okay, yeah, you're mixing it up. Threw me off. Okay, committee liaison records, respondents reports. Heads up, the Governmental Affairs Committee meets tomorrow at noon. You've seen the agenda there. I had the opportunity to visit my liaison school today. Carl Ben Eielson had a great visit. I ended up taking a picture of Principal Franklin's planning chart on his wall, which is pretty overwhelming, but thank you, Principal Franklin. They're in their 3rd year of BAR, building assets and reducing risks. He explained to me that they do some small block academic collaboration, and they do big block with the administrative counselors and teams. So I learned a lot about BAR. And then they do a community connect component with SWIFTs and PATH, just to make sure that the services that some students need outside of school are taken care of so they can actually learn and perform when they're there. So that was nice to hear. They were part of the traveling to ASU with Jefferson, Bennett, and CBE about the teacher leader program. He's pretty excited about that. He's on the middle school task force. He said that's about ready to get wrapped up and the board will need to take action on that. And then we talked a little bit about, I always ask, what do you want the board to know? And due to the upcoming potential budget cuts and also the specified mill levy election in 2026, he said very specifically, instructional coaches are invaluable. So that was his way of saying, don't cut instructional coaches. And then we talked briefly a little bit about evidence-based grading and reporting, and we agreed that some education is necessary for the public, and we've talked about that with legislators. So hopefully I got that all right. A little bit about SEEK, my other liaison appointment. One of the umbrellas that follows under SEEK is the North Dakota After School Network, which I've served on that advisory board lead team for many years. They are officially changing their name to North Dakota Out of School Time Network, or North Dakota OST Network, and they have finally secured a director for that, and her name is Dawn Hunt. She also aligns with school and 21st century stuff. So SEEK is moving through some of that personnel stuff. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Robin. Greg?
Yeah, other than attending governance, I attended the FPS Foundation meeting last week. Lots of interesting budget stuff. So I get to do budget stuff for FPS Foundation as well as us, so it's fun.
Thank you. Melissa?
Yes. So on October 15th, I met with Jim Erlacher and Laura Christensen from the FEA, and we had a little bit of a recap about what went well, what could have gone better for our negotiation session last year. And then we kind of talked about going forward, what would it look like if we stayed engaged with each other? And what we've landed on is that Laura, Jim, and I, along with Dr. Steiner, will try to do a monthly meeting where we check in and talk about the contract, issues that may be coming up in the future for negotiations, and just try to keep a really open dialogue. So that was our plan. And then on October 17th, I met with Dr. Steiner and just kind of recapped that same information. And then we talked about, what could we put on negotiation agendas for this year to remain productive, effective, and really ready for the next session. And then last Thursday, for my other liaison appointment, I'm on the Native American Commission. They had a work session. They've scheduled a few work sessions in the evenings to talk about what does the future look like for the Native American Commission. There's so many changes at the city level, and there's just a lot of restructuring going on, and we want to keep and honor what this commission has been doing, but it might look a lot different in the future. And so I was really impressed. The commission members are incredibly devoted, whip smart, know so much of the ins and outs about, what does community advocacy look like for our Indigenous people. And so it was just, I mostly just listened and kind of talked through a few issues that might come up if they're shifting how they're structuring. But we have another work session, I believe next month, but we're just kind of in the beginning stages of conversations. And then just as a reminder, we have a negotiations committee meeting on Thursday at noon.
Thank you, Melissa. Nikki? Oh, sorry, Kristen. Sorry.
Okay. I was going to talk about Discovery and echo what Dr. Steiner said about Mrs. Donat. She is fantastic as a librarian and brings so many innovative, fun programs to that school to get kids into the library. And she's just such a gem of a teacher. So that's all I have to report.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. Nikki?
All right. If we need another resounding kudos for Mrs. Donut, my kids went through that program and they read with their grandparents, which was a really interesting experience. So really enjoyed that with them. October 20th, we had governance. And then today I sat in on the NSBA Zoom talking about vouchers. And it sounds, interestingly enough, they had people on both sides of it. And it sounds like it's still a mess. they're just trying to figure out how to sort through it. Some people are for it, some people are against it, but it was interesting to listen to, so well worth the time.
Okay, thank you. Namal?
Thank you. So I finally get to attend a team meetings for the Virtual Academy. It was very interesting. Get to learn so many things that I haven't learned about Virtual Academy before regarding enrollments and how many students are not theirs and so forth. Holly, I think she's doing amazing with her team so well, and it seemed like there is couple of graduations. I didn't know about that either. Maybe I should have paid more attention to those pieces. Overall, I think I was just there listening to every conversation that they were talking about. Dr. Cruz, I think he did an amazing job putting that program, um, um, dealing with it. So basically, I just talk a little bit about myself because it sounded like they didn't know a bit about me. So, and my son was there too as well, watching. He was going like this. Um, but overall, I think it was a great meeting on the Zooms. I just can't wait to go out and to meet the rest of the staff outside of the Zoom meetings and get to meet the student too as well. I think it's going to be fun. We'll see how that will end. Thank you.
Thank you, Namal. Jason?
Yeah, just been corresponding with principals of my liaison schools and set up some visits this week. So looking forward to making it there. That's all I have.
Thank you. Allie?
Yes, so myself and Jackie and Laura met with Amber and we kind of put some ground rules in place for Leave Bank and how we'll work through those approvals this year. We've had a couple come in, so happy to report that we've been able to approve those and get those done in a timely manner. And Amber does a great job of keeping us all organized, and myself and Jackie and Laura were all on the same page. So it was great to be able to meet with them. I've talked with quite a few families that have reached out and expressed concerns around the You Marry Jazz Festival in terms of funding. I did have a sidebar conversation with Dr. Steiner when we were out at ND SBA conference and just had said, you know, is there things that we can explore, the things that we can look at? So I know that he's talking with Todd Olson on that and seeing if there is something that we can do or look at to potentially preserve that opportunity and that experience for students, such as, you know, booster clubs or outside fundraising, something along those lines. Because I know that that is important and we want to make sure that if we can preserve a program, we figure out ways that we can do it. I had the opportunity to attend Ben Franklin conferences. This was my first conference with the middle schoolers, so it was a new, unique experience where you actually bring your kid with to conferences. And I just have to share how impactful that was, not only as a parent, but as a board member, to be able to see the kids taking accountability for their own education. You know, being able to tell their parents, here's what I'm doing alongside their teachers, and really it was a great, you know, three-pronged partnership that was really, really phenomenal. And last but certainly not least, I had the opportunity to attend the ARC's annual gala, where they were able to honor my cousin for her work within special education, but really also showcased the phenomenal work that the ARC does within our community and within our schools. So they obviously have a pillar that is strictly based on education, and they touch not only different community groups, but our educational classrooms every day. So just wanted to share that as well.
Okay, thank you very much. For my report, I'll share that I had the opportunity to volunteer at the Washington Book Fair, which is always a highlight, tons of fun. And I had my first visit to Madison Elementary and got to meet with Ms. Conmey and take a tour of the building, and I look forward to getting back in there. I also had the opportunity to sit in and observe the teachers working on the 6th assignment in that work group. So it was good to see them brainstorming, and you could really kind of get a different vibe from each school on what their needs are and how they want to move forward with this. I also had my one-on-one with Dr. Steiner, probably made him late for other appointments, so I apologize for that. But lots of really great things going on. We had governance the other day, and one of the things we talked about was the superintendent evaluation. And so you all participated in that, and that'll be coming to you sometime soon for board approval. Also want to give a little friendly reminder that you should have gotten some information from Anne Marie. So you have a homework assignment coming towards you regarding the new name for our Northside School. So there's a lot to read, and please keep that due date of Wednesday, November 5th at noon in mind for getting your top 5 to her. The last thing I want to say before we adjourn is I do want to send my condolences to North High, to the friends and family and colleagues of Janelle Stahl-Ladberry, who died of cancer. Over the weekend, if you read her obituary, it suggested wearing jeans and Spartan apparel. So I got that going on today, and I would encourage you to try to do the same at some point in time. And beyond that, please hug your loved ones and thank a school counselor. And our next meeting is Wednesday, November 12th. It is 6:30 p.m. and we are adjourned.